Kia ora, and welcome to a Mini-Hoon on the Kaka, a Substack Live here on the Kaka in combination with Ben Reid, who runs Memia, Memia, an excellent Substack looking at the trends in technology from an Aotearoa point of view. Ben, lovely to have you here on a Mini-Hoon.
Kia ora, Brandon. Yeah, great to be with you.
We've spoken before, but I think now is a really interesting moment in the interaction between capital and labor, if you like. That globally, we're at a point where we're asking ourselves the question yet again: can the machines do all the work? And what happens when the machines do all the work, and the owners of those machines capture all the income? Who does the consuming, and what happens to the economy? Now, this may seem extreme and alarmist, but it's a question that investors are increasingly asking themselves all around the world because of this extraordinary period of innovation and growth and investment in AI. And I thought it would be good to have a chat with you because you watch this much more closely than pretty much anyone else in New Zealand. Yeah. And I'm very lucky you're able to come on and talk about this stuff. Great to see you.
Yeah, brilliant.
Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this today is that this week has been a really interesting one, not just from an AI point of view or a market point of view, but because from a Substack point of view, this week I think was a real moment for Substack. There's been plenty, but this one is one where a Substack post moved the world's stock markets. which is the post by Citrini Research, Citrini Research, which essentially posed the question: what might we be seeing in a couple of years' time if the trends in AI keep going? What did you think of that Citrini Research report?
Yeah, well, so for anyone that hasn't read it, it's written like a scenario. It's called the 2028 Global Intelligence Crisis, and it's written like a futurist scenario, looking back over the last 3 years, back to basically where we are now at the beginning of 2026. And the narrative is exactly as you say, that intelligence, the acceleration of artificial intelligence capabilities, continues at such a pace that human cognitive work, white collar work, as it's traditionally called, which includes the most advanced technology jobs, software engineering, AI engineering jobs, as well as most of the services economy, is displaced. So fundamentally, the pricing of intelligence goes from an hourly rate for a human to a per token rate for an AI model. And there's research now from some labs. I mean, there's one lab called METR, which tracks the progress of intelligence, and their modeling now is that the most advanced model, Claude Opus 4.6, which came out a couple of weeks ago, is now capable of autonomously doing over an hour's worth of human work in software development at about 80% reliability compared to humans. Okay, and they've got this trend line going out. So the rate a year ago when they started doing this this analysis, they were saying that the rate of change was about doubling every 0.7 months, and now that's gone down closer towards 4 months, right, in terms of the doubling rate. And so if you look at this on a non-log scale, then it's sort of just going up vertically now in terms of the capability. So that means by July, that'll be 2 hours of human work of professional software development work will take will be done at 80% reliability by AI. By the end of the year, again, doubling again, so 4 hours work. So, and you can see where this goes. So if it is a exponential curve, right? So we could just be in a sigmoid curve. There are all sorts of criticisms about the fact that it's not constrained by the physical limits of the world in terms, the capital, the vast amounts of venture capital which have poured into building fictional future data centers that are going to house all of this intelligence. And where has that capital come from? And my big question is, how much toxic debt underlies that we're just not seeing. That I think is probably a question that may be a constraint. But assuming that there is an infinite amount of capital, then is there enough electricity to generate to actually drive this model? And so you've now got and then just coming in with all of this is the fact that the big AI companies, Anthropic and now SpaceX/xAI, now they've merged, have big IPOs coming this year. So it's in all of their interest for this narrative to be rolled out around, and be perpetuated around the world. So there's a lot of truth in the Citrini paper. But my sense is, and there's been lots of criticism of it as being, a scary bedtime story for humans. And there's lots of economists that have explained why some of the timelines in there. The actual underlying model hasn't been published, so it's more of a narrative than a scenario. But the rate of acceleration of technology change, which has been going on for years, is now viscerally around us, and we are in this crossover moment where the price of what a human brain, a biological brain, is being repriced towards a per token model.
Yeah. For me, it was a sort of a what's up moment when this report came out, because part of my job is to follow what's happening on global financial markets and try and work out what's shifting markets very quickly in the morning, just as the markets are starting to close. And early on Tuesday morning, there was a sudden move in the markets where a whole bunch of stocks, ones software as a service type
the ones
stocks.
named in this article. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Which might have just been AI trading. That's a hilarious thing. It's like spot the sentiment in this latest piece of engaging content and short the stock, right?
Yeah. And to be fair, Citrini Research were quite open about what they were doing here. In fact, this is the first two sentences of the report, which is very clear. So it says, what follows is a scenario, not a prediction. This isn't bear porn or AI doomer fan fiction. The sole intent of this piece is modelling a scenario that's been relatively underexplored. And essentially, the reason I think it is interesting is that it sort of teases out what happens, as you say, the power of AI gets increasingly powerful, and the time it takes to double up becomes faster. And what you see is more and more jobs which were previously very high paying, now being done by AI. And it asks the question, as the income from that work, if you like, gets shifted to the owners of AI, that the people who previously were paid, good wages to be a software developer or to be a mid-level manager, some sort of white-collar job in a big corporate, someone who goes to an office and has coffee every day and goes out and buys themselves a $10 burger or whatever, that we, I think Ben has just left the stream, but I think he'll be back fairly soon.
Sorry, one of us dropped out.
No, I think it might have been you.
Probably me.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
sorry,
okay. I was having a good old rambly rant, so it was good.
That's good. You stayed in my ears for quite a while.
Oh, good. So what I was saying was that there's a risk here of what you call a doom loop, where as the power becomes greater, more and more work goes to the machines, less and less work goes to the people. And then eventually we get to a point where you're producing lots of stuff and services, but there aren't enough people, actual humans, able to pay the bills to buy this stuff.
And there's so many assumptions in that scenario of that demographics around the world will stay the same, that governments won't step in, with some kind of stimulus, that that people won't be able to retrain for new skills. And so I think that's the degree. There's so many assumptions baked into this scenario that we should, be careful around it. But yeah, look, I think, fundamentally, in our known history, when a general purpose technology like electricity or like the petrol engine came along, and it took quite a long time to diffuse out into society. And over the courses, just for example, the classic petrol engine one is everyone who used to put all the blacksmiths that used to put the shoes on horses, and people that used to drive the horse and carriages around the road, retrained as car mechanics or started working in Henry Ford's factory. And so there's always been, over a period of time, the diffusion rate of this technology out into the economy has allowed time for people to reskill and retrain. And so the assumption underpinning pretty much all institutional responses right now is that we've got a cyclical economy, and we just need to play around with interest rates. It's such a blunt instrument to put some stimulus back in the economy, and then people will start investing in the next thing. But there is a big question here around, is it different this time? And so if the rate of this technology advance continues to accelerate beyond the skills, the ability of humans to retrain in time, then where's the value in cognitive work when you can just get it for 1 cent for 4 hours of someone's work, right? Is the pricing that it could be at the end of this year. And so, that's quite existential. I think, I've been talking about this stuff for many years. As you know, I wrote with AI. I wrote a sort of 600-page book on it a couple of years ago, and would like this to be part of our national political debate. It certainly isn't. I think it's sort of racing up to hit us in the face right now. So it would be absolutely fantastic if one or more politicians actually took a stand on this and had some policies to get ready for a fairer transition here, right? And so there is going to be significant disruption and change in the white collar economy, and how quickly that's going to happen, I think this piece possibly overestimates. It may be more years than just 1 or 2, but the rate of technology change. So that's the diffusion question, right? So the rate of technology change, I think, from my point of view, watching it, I'm just punch drunk every day now with just new releases, new stories, and a lot of that is pushing that AI super intelligence narrative. Hence, invest in my data center, invest in my IPO, which, let's be skeptical and cynical around that. But I think the rate at which the technology diffuses out in the economy is going to potentially disrupt and displace a lot of human jobs. And so, as a society, what are we going to do about that? I certainly look at countries like Denmark, where they have, I think it's flexi-security, or flexicurity they call it, which is a social security scheme. So anybody can be let go from a job, but if they pay into an unemployment insurance scheme, then you get a 2-year unemployment support, no questions asked, and you have to be on a retraining scheme there. I think the another angle on all of this is that you talking about the owners of this AI, right? So there's a geopolitical power game going on at the moment with the large US labs protecting their models that they trained on, the entire public commons of the internet, but protecting that behind an API and forcing everybody to pay for access. China's basically playing a counter game with that, and the leading Chinese labs provide open weights models, we call them. It's not quite open source, and these are models that you can download, and I can deploy them. I've got some on my laptop, the smaller ones. You can deploy them onto your own hardware, and so companies increasingly are looking at the economics of that and favoring the Chinese model. And the open weights models are, as a rule, maybe 6, maybe 3 months behind the frontier of what's released commercially. So, it makes a lot of sense. And that actually keeps price competition going there. And so, reduces the ability for any price gouging from commercial companies there. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the interesting points in the Citrini research thing that really struck me was how the advent of agents, AI agents, the way it was described in the piece as uh, AI agents or agentic agents, which would
Agentic
essentially
agents. There you go.
agentic agents that
You should
would
go into marketing. Yeah.
yeah. Oh dear. Maybe there's a future in marketing. Maybe not. Where these agents would effectively go around the internet comparing prices for
Yeah.
different services for you. So you didn't have to do all
Hmm.
the Googling or the searching or the checking the prices in the way that we do now with, things like WebJet or
Skyscanner. Yeah.
yes, Skyscanner. Or let's say, for example, we were just standing at the corner of the street. Now, at the moment, we're all stuck with Uber, really, because there's a network effect, which means that the time it takes for, everyone to use different apps and download them all and set up their payment systems means in the end we just go to one app. But with agentic agents, you have the potential for the agent to so quickly do the work and to be
Yes.
so integrated into your own, personal
Yep.
situation, so to speak, with the ability to make payments, to, go through all that noise, that friction of, signing up for things and, going back to your email and checking the code and putting the code in and blah, blah. The friction of all of this checking, of all of this comparison becomes so low that the agents are able to, in effect, drive down the prices of any sort of service that can be delivered online. And you get to see services like insurance, banking, travel agencies, stockbroking, insurance broking, these sorts of things, all suddenly become totally hammered.
Just disintermediated.
Yeah,
Completely
exactly.
disintermediated. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's basically just an extension of what's happened, with the internet over the years.
yeah.
When you think that we used to have to physically walk into a shop or, write a letter or fill in a form or something back in the day. And now, we have these mobile experiences. And so it's an extension of the autonomy we give to the computers. If you've been following the open claw, meme that's been going on in the last couple of weeks where you can, download your own AI agent, put it on a computer and give it access to all of your personal information. So I just don't. the, the lesson that everybody's learned there are still significant security challenges with the large language model transformer architecture underneath most language models now. And so the security holes, there's a novel technology and we're just coming across new security holes in the wild all the time. So I won't be putting my credit card information or health information near any of these and connecting it to the internet anytime soon. But I think, these are bugs in software ultimately, and bugs get fixed. And so I think we should expect that narrative around agentic commerce to spin up really quickly. You're actually seeing it already. Amazon and Walmart have got, we will shop for you agents, and they back it with their brand and so on. So and I think it's going to become just normal. Is that you have an agent that that you just delegate like one would to a human person, member of staff or something. So everybody gets to have their own chief of staff in the future is the dream. And there's this concept of Jevons paradox where actually, even though this becomes, more and more powerful and uses up more and more electricity to do it, and uses up more and more intelligence, the fact is the price keeps coming down, and that it just enables whole new things that we just weren't able to do. So imagine if the 4 hours a week of travel planning that we would have to do now is just done in the background. What are you going to do with those 4 hours? And my experience is that 4 hours fills up with a whole bunch of work, not least of which is managing the outputs of that process that's just been delegated. And so that's another reason why I'm quite skeptical about the Citrini narrative, is that the more you automate, you just move the bottlenecks somewhere else. And so I'm busy. I've got AI. AI writes my Substack, to be quite honest, every week now. And yet I still seem to put more hours in around the whole process. So, go figure.
Yeah. I mean, that sort of hints at the that great line from John Maynard Keynes, who's still my hero, really, who said some things in the 1920s when he was seeing the extraordinary shifts in technology towards automobiles, towards radio, towards aviation, in which he, mused aloud, but like Citrini today, mused aloud that, the machines would become so powerful. We'd all have so much time on our hands and there'd be so much leisure that we could all just, lie back, and the real problem will be working out how to spend your time. And of course, that didn't really happen. We had a lot of people become unemployed and not have enough income to pay for food and stuff. But some people became very wealthy. One of the arguments against that sort of, doom loop idea is that, over time, people retrain, they get into new types of jobs. Maybe you lost your job as a call center operator, but you became a, yoga instructor. That's the sort of great theory.
Or an AI psychological counselor. Right?
Yeah.
Fixing all the issues, psychological issues generated by AI. Yeah.
That escalated, yeah. And that's one of the ideas, that eventually, we all adjust. And the other one is, oh, don't worry, just buy NVIDIA. Just buy Anthropic. Just make sure you've got a cut of the capital that keeps escalating in value.
And that is the primary meme behind the Citrini piece.
Yeah. That you could somehow
there's no bubble. There's no bubble. There's no crash coming.
Yeah. That we just need to shift all our assets away from the old world, IBM, for example, into these other stocks. Not just the ones that are the running the AI themselves, but of course there's a whole bunch of, gold rush companies that make the shovels, that make the chips, that make the data centers, and the economy isn't a magically, equilibrating machine, and don't worry, it'll all be fine. What do you reckon about that argument?
I mean, if this scenario comes right, then yes, that's a good, go and buy you're into a very highly priced NVIDIA stock, hoping it will go up even further. As I said earlier, I just look at this. I'm not an economist, I'm a technologist, and the thing that surprises me about the global financial system is there's no common ledger across everything. And so the ability to parcel debt up and move it around faster than it's actually legible to everyone in the system just feels like a casino to me. It feels like it's a house that if I wanted to play in, I wouldn't be winning. And that's this whole dynamic of that feels like that to me. And I'm not a gambler, so I don't understand how it works. I suspect, given previous crashes that we've witnessed, as I say, I think there's going to be a whole bunch of toxic debt exposed at some point when it gets to breaking point. But whether that's in 4 years' time, I mean, I emigrated to New Zealand in 2004 thinking that the property market was going to go pop, and I was right, but I was 4 years too early, right? So whether it's another few years, I don't know. Maybe it will never happen, but yeah. I don't. I suspect that there will be a breaking point in terms of exposing some of the financial bets that have been taken to push this narrative. And but I think the underlying the whole thing is like, yes, the technology, it's like the .com exuberance delivered. It did deliver. The hypothesis was correct. It just took 10 to 15 years longer than everyone was anticipating. I think we're the same there. And it's going to have fundamental implications for how our economy is structured and how the money does flow around. And what are we optimizing for? So are we optimizing for this system that operates to maximize GDP at the expense of environmental externalities, at the expense of social inequality, economic wealth inequality? Or can we design better systems around that? And whether that is tax on capital, tax on AI, to go and look at making sure that there is some kind of dividend for the people that don't own NVIDIA stock out of this is a question for governments all around the world. And you'll find different political persuasions, warm to that or not. But I mean, we need to think about the consequences for Aotearoa New Zealand, because a big chunk of our economy runs at a snail's pace, and that's not just in public sector but also private sector, and could be we could find that this transformation just lands on us competitively, just in terms of international competition levels, and a lot of people could find a change in the labor market really rapidly. And so as a country, we really need to anticipate that scenario and at least have some kind of thinking about what we would do in that situation, because I think there's going to be disruption of some kind coming, would be my sense.
A great way to start the discussion. Ben, thank you very much for coming on to a Mini-Hoon on the Kaka. Ben Reid there, who runs the excellent Mimia Substack. Oh. And if you've just popped on at the end of this Substack Live, there'll be a recording that gets sent out and is available to both sets of subscribers. So, ka kite anō, ngā mihi nui.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, bye.